Hi. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jade. I'm an artist and illustrator living and working in northeast Scotland. My content usually focuses around studio vlogs and the running of my Etsy business, but today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I wanted to talk to you today about zines. So if you don't know what a zine is, zines are a small circulation independent magazine. They're usually self-made without the aid of a publisher or anything like that. They focus around a lot of topics. The first zines were fanzines to do with the sci-fi fandoms in the 1950s. From there they moved into more music and punk spaces. An example of like an early zine is the punk zine Sniff and Glue, which was in circulation I think during the early 70s. I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate, but it focused around punk bands and reviewing music and was a sort of antithesis to music journalism at the time. From there, the Riot Grrrl movement was started and founded around zines and music. So you might have heard of the band Bikini Kill, fronted by Kathleen Hanna, but you might not know that that originally started as a zine. Bikini Kill was one of the first Riot Grrrl zines, and the Riot Grrrl movement started in opposition to the punk movement and the sexism that many women felt within that movement. So Bikini Kill started as a zine about Riot Grrrl and their ideology and ethos, and then Bikini Kill became a band. Zines have experienced a resurgence in popularity. I think particularly with the age of the internet, there's a lot of artists, illustrators, poets, writers, comic book artists, queer people talking about their experiences and doing that through self-made zines. Today I'm going to be showing you some of the zines that I've made, some of the zines that I own, and I'm also taking part in a zine fair right at the moment. Coin Up Press, which is a duo who make zines themselves, are hosting a zine fair. I'll link their Instagram and stuff below, and I'm taking part in that, and so by the time this video goes up you should still be able to check out all the zinesters. They're virtually tabling on the Coin Up Press website, so go check them out. There's some amazing people. They're based in Scotland, but there's zinesters taking part from like the United States and like other places, so it's really interesting. As part of that, they asked everybody to fill in some interview questions, and I thought I would also film a video response. So yeah, through that I'm going to be showing you some of my zines, talking about what I love about zines. So, you know, all zines all the time. That's the theme of today, so let's get into it. What do zines mean to you? Well, zines are something that I'm very, very passionate about. I love the DIY aspect of them. I've always been fascinated with books and just their construction. I've always loved reading and writing and drawing, but I feel like if you want to make a book, usually there has to be a company involved who gives you permission to do that, who allows you to do that. Publishing and art can be quite elitist in the entry to it. Like you know, you need the approval of you know, HarperCollins or like a gallery, you know. When I found out about zines, I loved the fact that it removes that level of permission. Like, you don't need a permission slip to make a zine. It's all about doing it yourself. It's incredibly linked with more marginal communities and with the punk movement. So there's something incredibly satisfying to me, especially as someone who likes to make things and do things myself. Like my Etsy shop, I manufacture, design, everything myself. You know, it would probably be easier if I got other people involved in the making of my products, but it's always been my attitude and my ethos to do everything myself that I can. So zines are kind of like another part of that. they mean taking control and curation of your own work and the way you want things. I recently made a poetry zine, which I have here. It's called Life Will Flower From Our Bones. It's available on my Etsy shop. And I knew that if I wanted to publish a poetry book, it would be done in a very particular way, you know, due to like printing costs and stuff like that. With this, I could incorporate my art into the poetry. So I collaged a page for every poem. I put illustrations in there and photographs in there, and if it was a poetry book, it would probably just be a case of like, well, you can't do that because of like limitations with how much it would cost and how much we would have to sell it for and things like that. But with zines, I can kind of do things my way, and I think that's really appealing, especially as someone who loves creativity and loves to have control of that creativity as well. Also, zines aren't really about money or notoriety. Nobody makes a huge amount of money from zines. Nobody gets famous from making zines, you know. It's about making something that you love and finding a community of people who also love it, and that's something really special. And I think like the connection that you make with someone when you enjoy their zine or they enjoy your zine is just something that like it can't be comparable to, you know, the kind of feedback we get in a digital age with social media and things. There's something so much more satisfying about having a physical thing that somebody made with love and care themselves and curated every aspect of. I don't know, there's something incredibly personal about it. But yeah, to me they really mean doing things your way, yourself, without permission from anybody else. How did you first get started with zines? So I first learned about zines actually when I was studying media studies in high school, when we were doing about magazine publications. We briefly talked about zines as well, and I found out about the punk zine Sniff and Glue, which it also tied into my love of music as well. My dad was and still is a huge punk in both senses of the word. He's pretty tall. So I've always been into kind of like alternative music, punk music, rock music. And when I was a teenager, I discovered the Riot Grrrl movement, which I thought was amazing. And I listened to bands like Bikini Kill and Babes in Toyland. And when I found out that Bikini Kill had started as a zine, that was so interesting to me, and my interest just spiraled from there. I actually started making zines when I moved to Aberdeen. It was actually after I'd graduated from university. I started going to a live drawing group called Art Noodles, and there I met my amazing friend Siobhan, and they are amazing artists and they make zines. And I also met Hannah and May, who run Hysteria. Hysteria is an open mic night in Aberdeen. It's for queer, feminine people. There's a lot of like poetry and music and stuff. There's like sometimes comedy and things, but there's also a zine that they publish with it. I think this was the first Hysteria zine that I got at their open mic night, and if you look at it, there's like artwork, there's stories, poems, collages, and I read through it. I also read this story, which is called When Jesus Doesn't Love You, which was just, it's beautiful and it's crazy. Who's this by?
A few moments later.
And I was in awe of this zine. I read it while I was like waiting for the show to start, and then I got talking to Hannah and May more, and we became friends, and then I helped them doing some art for one of their zines. I think this was the first one that I did some art for. And yeah, I loved that. It was such a fun experience. I made the background for this, and this is one of my illustrations. And I also made the background of this one and collaged this story. We did a zine making party as well for one of those zines, which was so fun. You know, we got pizza, we listened to music and just like collaged the zine together. Back when that was like legal to do.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Yeah, and it was so fun. And then like I got thinking about it, and I've been writing poetry for years, but I hadn't really shared much of it with people, and I decided to start making zines of my own art and poetry. Next question is, tell us about your zines. Well, I currently have 4 zines available in my Etsy shop. I'm hoping to expand that, but I put a lot of work into them and they're quite thick. I will show them to you now. The first zine, it's actually the first zine I made, and it's the last one that I listed. I only listed it today because I'm, you know, chaotic. My Inktober 2018 zine. For Inktober 2018, I didn't follow any of the prompts. If you don't know what Inktober is a 30-day drawing challenge where you try to draw every day through the month of October with ink. It was started by Jake Parker. There's an official prompt list. This isn't affiliated with Jake Parker in any way. I've done it twice and completed it twice, and I've made zines for both of the finished collection of drawings. So the first one I did was mythical creatures and their hobbies. I made it into this zine. So I went for a kind of like leather-bound anthropology book sort of thing, like an explorer who'd gone and found all these mythical creatures and, you know, documented them and their hobbies. So it's full colour, and it's, you know, it's got stuff like this. This is The Kraken Loves Keyboards. I've got a bit of a Rick Wakeman moment. God, young people on YouTube are not going to know who Rick Wakeman is. Look up the band, yes. The Reaper looks at RPGs. So it's like, this is one of my favourite drawings that I did of the month. It's a Grim Reaper being a dungeon master, and he's got like Monopoly and Stratego and the Game of Life and Risk behind him. You can get this as a print as well in my shop. What else? Oh, I really like this one as well. Where are you? There we go. The Cyclops makes miniature models, and the Witch likes making homebrew. So yeah, they're just a little bit sort of comedy kind of based. The fairies like fencing, and it's laser printed. The paper inside is recycled paper, and then the cover is cardstock. This was a lot of trial and error. Like, that's one of the reasons why it took me so long, because it was a real learning process on like how to make a zine like this. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. I also have Inktober 29. I can't speak, man. Inktober 2019 zine. God, that's hard to say. Inktober 2019 zine. This time I did follow the prompts. I finished Inktober 2019 as well. Again, printed with a cardstock cover, like laser printed. So it has a list of the prompts in there. I did it all in black, grey, white and red to give it this kind of vibe. I really like this sort of Magritte one. I think the prompt for this one was pattern. These two have proved to be quite popular. You can also get prints of these. I still got a lot of the originals actually listed on my Etsy, so if you want an original, it might be available. I've sold some of them, but yeah, so this was the same sort of thing. More recently, this is another art zine. I made a zine of a mini travel sketchbook I've got. So this is my kind of test proof, so this one's a little bit beat up, but the ones that I'm actually selling are a lot nicer. I just picked up the wrong one. This is a illustration from another sketchbook that I did of like my watercolor and like drawing materials and stuff that I made into the cover. I got a sketchbook when I was in Italy in I think it was 2018. It's got a lot of like collaging and stuff that I got from like, you know, my trip to like, I went to Venice and Florence, and I think we spent like a day in Pisa as well. Some of the drawings are from that trip. Like this was a sort of unfinished drawing of just what I could see when I was at a restaurant sort of waiting for lunch. I think they had paper over like the tablecloth that they changed like between customers, so I was just drawing on it because I'm that person. But I didn't finish it, but I kind of liked how it looked. I just decided I wanted to make like a small zine in a day, so that's where this came from. This is also available in my Etsy shop. This is a bit cheaper than all the other ones because it's, you know, like sort of smaller and simpler. And then my most recent zine is my poetry zine. This is called Life Will Flower From Our Bones. I've been writing poetry for most of my life, for as long as I can remember, but I really didn't share it with many people because it was a very, like, it's a very personal thing. But I wrote a lot of poetry during lockdown. I took part in Lena Norms's Lena's Lock-In, it was called. Like, she did these like live streams on YouTube and she gave prompts and stuff, so I did that. And then after that, in April, it was Savannah Brown's Escape Roll, so it's kind of like Inktober but for poetry, so there's like a 30-day prompt for, you know, poetry. Again, this is like recycled paper and the cover is cardstock because I find that like, and that's a sort of formula for making these kind of A5 zines that I like, because obviously the 100% recycled paper is sustainable, it's cheap, I really like it, I like the texture and stuff of it, but the cardstock cover is a little bit more sturdy, so they're a little bit more robust and they'll last longer. And this was just a illustration that I did for the cover, but I really like how this turned out. Those are my 4 zines. I'm hoping to do more. I'm hoping to do ones more about like specific topics, like my experience with mental health, my experience as a queer person, comic zines and stuff like that, but those are the ones that I have at the minute. So, and they're all available in my Etsy shop, Trash Bag Boutique. What resources do you use to create your zines? Most of my resources are really my own work, so it's, you know, mainly my own poetry, my own artwork, photographs. I mainly use like magazines and stuff to collage things. That's the only like outside source, and like, you know, sort of construction paper and cardstock and things like that. But yeah, other than that, it's mainly just like my own imagination, because I haven't made any zines specifically about topics that require research. I do have a history of art degree and I've thought about making a sort of like a few academic zines about history of art, and like I said, I want to make some stuff about my own experience with mental health and stuff like that, so I would probably use more like actual research materials for that. But yeah, for the most part it's mainly magazines like National Geographic. I had a few issues of like Artist and Illustrator and like the Ken Bromley catalogue and like Sunday Times supplements, things like that. Oh, my watch is beeping at me. Tell us about your zine making process. So I make my zines by hand traditionally first. A lot of the time with the art zines, it'll be I've made a work of art, usually in my sketchbook or on a piece of paper, and then I'll scan them in and compile them. For the poetry zine that I made, I printed off the poems and cut them up and made the collages by hand, so like something like this, and then I scan it in and then I'll edit it in Photoshop. I usually don't really have to do a lot of editing for the collages. I might have to like crop things a bit or put in a bleed or something like that, and then it ends up like this in the finished zine. I have Photoshop from before Adobe introduced the like subscription model, so you could actually own Photoshop. Otherwise I would probably be using GIMP, which is an open source image editing software, because I just don't have the money for Adobe Creative Suite. For the same reason I don't use InDesign to make my zines, which I know a lot of artists and creatives do. I use Scribus, which is an open source piece of software to create like booklets and things. Although sometimes what I'll do is I'll just make a mock-up using recycled paper. I'll usually make it in miniature kind of thing, so I'll get an A4 sheet of recycled paper and cut it up to make little pages, and then I'll number them and figure out, because if you open it out, it's like A4 sheets of paper folded in half, but you know, the first sheet will have the first page but also the last page. So yeah, I kind of work that out kind of thing, like the math of like which page goes on which sheet of paper, and then I'll figure out how that needs to, like, that's a bit of a kind of mental, like, how do I say that without swearing? That's a bit of a mind-boggling process, but sometimes I find that's easier because I have a lot of trouble with PDFs and things like that. But if you use Scribus, you can export it as a PDF and then you can just print it in booklet format. It's a lot of trial and error, to be honest. And then after that, I fold all the pages by hand. I have a little plastic bone folder and then I staple them. I've got a long arm stapler, so I use that. It's a lifesaver if you like to make A4 zines, although you can stitch it and there's plenty of ways to bind zines. And then I cut them down using a Stanley knife, so I have a ruler and a Stanley knife and I cut the edges to make sure everything's neat. Do you have any advice for newbie zinesters? My first and foremost piece of advice would be just start. The great thing about zines is you don't need a permission slip, you don't need anybody's help or anything to make a zine kind of thing, and if you do, it's usually collaborations with friends and things like that. Yeah, we live in the age of information. I would say that Google and YouTube are Zinester's best friend. That's how I learned most of the information that I got about zines. I mean, all you really need to make a zine is some paper, even just like one A4 sheet of paper, some scissors and a pen, and you can kind of just build it up from there. Maybe if you're at school or university, there's always photocopying services there. If not, if you're in the UK, places like Staples and stuff, you can just Google photocopying services in your area. I have my laptop. Most people do have, you know, some sort of computer. If not, you do have your phone as well. All smartphones are just mini computers, so there's a lot that you can just do on your phone. I do a lot of image tuning for Instagram on my phones, you know, taking photographs, and you can get a lot of software if you don't have a laptop. I got my printer from from a jumble sale for the Scouts for £6 because it was missing the faceplate and it had no ink. A lot of people will sell their printers online when they run out of ink because a lot of the time it's cheaper to buy a new printer than to buy like the branded ink to replace it, which I have a huge problem with because it's really environmentally wasteful. But you can counteract that by buying one of those discarded printers and getting non-branded ink to replace it. If you're making zines, you're just trying to make things cheaply. Yeah, that was how I managed to get a printer before I got a laser printer and stuff. I just had like the Epson inkjet, and that's what I made my first one of the Inktober zines on. Now I have a laser printer and that's amazing, but it's totally not necessary. Also, my printer had a scanner built into it, so for £6 I had a printer and a scanner. Honestly, if you want to make zines, it's a real learning process, but everything that you need is available to you on a pretty low budget. Even if you can't afford some paper, I'm sure there's somewhere that you can get it from. Make a zine from the till roll at work, just take a piece of that, and you know, there's always a possibility to work around your constraints, and that's kind of what making zines is about, being faced with the obstacles of doing something like this yourself and then overcoming them. So yeah, you can do it. I believe in you. Yeah. Also, like, be punk. Don't wait for anyone's permission. Just go for it. And you know, it's a lot of fun. It really is. What's your favourite part about zine culture? I've mentioned this already, I'm pretty sure, but I love how DIY the whole process is, how you don't need anybody's permission to do it, how it's quite like underground and punk and, you know, sort of like self-motivated and creative. But I also love the community aspect of it. I feel like whenever I meet somebody who's into zines or makes zines, we're like instantly going to be friends. It's a very niche kind of thing, and a lot of the things that zines are made about are very niche, like whether it's like the fandom that you're into or your like experience as like a marginalized person, or, you know, like your poetry or your artwork. It's like very personal and also very fringe. I feel like zines encompass a community of people who maybe don't fit in or are nerdy about things, and that's the kind of person that I am. I'm a huge nerd. I've always sort of struggled to fit in and been a bit kind of like alternative, and, you know, had my own niche interests and stuff. I've made a lot of friends through zines. If you're a marginalized person who doesn't see representation of yourself and your own lived experience, then zines are a great place to do that, because you can represent your own personal experience through the things that you create. If you feel like there isn't enough print media particularly, or any media that's about your own experience, then I would really encourage you to make a zine and spread it around. Give it away, sell it, do whatever you feel comfortable with, you know, leave it in places, give it to your friends. It's such a cool kind of culture. Do you have any favourite zines or zinesters? This one's like pretty tough. I think this is probably the toughest question, but I have a few things here that I wanted to show you. I've already mentioned the Hysteria zines. I think there's one of these available, not these particular ones, but there's a Hysteria zine available on Etsy. I'll try and find it and link it in the description, but these are always great. Feminist, feminine, non-binary, trans, queer voices, stories, poetry, artwork. It's like, it's the whole deal. And the people who run it, Hannah and May, are just like, they're wonderful people. They're so lovely, they're so funny, they're so kind, and we've become good friends, and I really like value them as people. And I think like what they make with Hysteria and stuff is amazing. Actually, May, one of the founders of Hysteria, she's released a zine about her own experience being somebody who is defined by society as a queer woman of colour. I did order it and she did send it to me, but my neighbours are stealing my post. So it seems like one of them really wanted her zine, which is cool, you know, they could have just asked. Yeah, and then she had a problem with like the supply of them and stuff, so I don't actually have that one yet. I was hoping to show you, but I'm pretty sure it's available on her Big Cartel shop. I've seen images of it from Instagram and stuff, and like it looks amazing, it looks really good. This is Doom Rolled in Glitter by Lena Norms. I think it's 20 poems about being in her 20s, and that's where the title came from. She described being in her 20s as doom rolled in glitter, which I think is a really, like, it's a beautiful cover. Does it say who the artist is? Artwork by Emma Hayden, and it's at Emma Hayden Art on Instagram and stuff, but there are some really great poems in this. It's like sort of newspaper print. I just dip into this every now and again and just read it cover to cover. Again, I love poetry, and the poems in this are wonderful, and I like Lena. She makes cool content on YouTube and stuff, you know, so I like, she's one of those people where like I watch her videos as soon as they come out. I also got this from another YouTuber I watch regularly, Fran Meneses, or Franard. This one is the Bamford Serial Girls. This is just kind of like a little sketchbook kind of collection, a lot of like Copic marker stuff. It's really beautifully done, it's really high quality. I think that she probably got this done with awesome merch. Copic marker drawings and stuff, it's beautiful. I wanted to get more of her stuff, but I got this when she still lived in Hastings, so the delivery wasn't that much, but now she lives in New York, so if I were to buy another one of her zines, the delivery would floor me. Her stuff's really great. I also have some stickers by her. She's a wonderful illustrator, and she also makes YouTube content. This is one of my favourite zines ever. It's called The Library Zine Extended Hours, and it's by Bradical Press, which is a collective in Bradford in the UK. It's really a really simple concept. The preface says, Bradical is a self-publishing project with the aim of promoting brown writers, artists and Bradford. This is a new innovative for Bradical, exposing new writers and artists writing about or by brown people. We are very excited to share it with you and would like you to tell us what you think. This zine was created for a British Library archival project, and it's just about people's experiences with public libraries. It's really beautiful. There's a writing describing their experience with the library and stuff, like their local library. And it was just so heartwarming, and I love it so much. I'm getting distracted because I really like this. There's voices from people who've emigrated to the UK and have found a kind of like safe space in their library and stuff, and about why they love libraries. And I love everything about this. It's so great. I would recommend getting this. And I think it was really cheap. I think it was like maybe £3 at most. I'm not entirely sure, but it's so good. I also got these two poetry zines, one by Emily Herbert and a poem by, this one, the poem is by Jordan Friend, and the zine design was by his sister, Erin Grace Friend. And this one's kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of golden joinery. So when ceramics break, it's like a way of fixing them where you put gold into the grout to kind of like highlight the cracks, and it makes really cool effects. It's a concept that I'm quite interested in. This is a poem about that on a personal level, like your own personal kintsugi, facing your own flaws and cracks and making them shine. And this one is called Notes at Poetry by Emily Herbert. It's so handmade. It's very teenage. I mean that in a positive way. I hate to admit this, but I'm 30 now, and this just brought me so much joy of just sort of like remembering what it was like to be a teenager in a small town. And I think she wrote these during the first UK lockdown, which is when I wrote the poems from my poetry zine as well. And I also wanted to mention Greg Kletzel. Now, I don't actually own any of his zines. He makes phenomenal zines. He's an illustrator from the United States, and there's a zine that I want so badly. It's called Exercise the Demon, and it's just a zine in risograph about Gene Simmons and Richard Simmons. So it's just kind of based on the fact that they both have the same surname, and it's wonderful. It's like, it's funny, it's cool, it's like, you know, really well illustrated. He's also got one called Conceptual Bar Mitzvah Videotape, which is a zine, another illustrated zine sort of based around the concept of like bar mitzvah videotapes, and sort of like a hypothetical one. He's got loads of amazing zines, and he also has a YouTube channel as well, and he's got a video about why you should make a zine. So yeah, Greg Kletzel is, he's such a great illustrator, and he makes phenomenal zines. So they're just a few sort of like people that I really love their zines, and I really love the things that they do. So yeah, I hope you'll check them out as well. Why do you make zines? I mean, I think you can probably tell from this video that it's something that I'm really passionate about. I love them. I love holding them in my hands. I love the way that they're bound. I love the imagery that people use, and I love reading people's voices and their experiences. And you know, you can just get a zine and not know what it's about. I'm so passionate about it, and I make them to express myself. I make them to share my work with the world in a way that I have curated, and I make them to connect with people. Nothing makes me happier than when somebody's like, hey, I bought your zine and I read it, or I looked through it if it's like just a pure art zine and I really liked it. That's honestly why I make art, and I think it's a really beautiful thing. So yeah, that's why I make zines. I hope that didn't sound too like pageant Miss America kind of, zines will save the world, but they might, you don't know, you know. Do you have any events, zine fairs, zine launches, or anything else you're excited to tell us about? Like I said, I've just released my first poetry zine, Life Will Flower From Our Bones. It's available on my Etsy. Other than that, I don't have any like specific events, but I post on Instagram all the time. I make artwork all the time. I make products and put them on Etsy and stuff. My Etsy is Trash Bag Boutique, and I'll link it below. You can find me on Instagram at Jade Flannery Art. And not zine related, but my band Paris Syndrome, we just released our latest single, Sellout, which is available on Bandcamp. It's bandcamp.com/weareparissyndrome. We write, produce, record all our songs ourselves in my tiny flat. And we worked so hard on this. I'm so happy with how it turned out. So, you know, you can stream it or buy it on Bandcamp, but even just like listening to it just means the world to us. Other than that, check out Coin Up Press, check out all of the other zinesters. There's some amazing people. Have a wonderful day and go and make a zine. You won't regret it. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I'm Jade Flannery, the owner of Trash Bag Boutique, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.